The suicides of Nadia Kajouji and Mark Drybrough are tragic cases that have drawn significant attention to the dark corners of the internet where vulnerable individuals can be preyed upon. These cases were further complicated by the involvement of William Melchert-Dinkel, a former nurse who encouraged and assisted these individuals in their final acts. This article explores the lives of Kajouji and Drybrough, the pivotal role played by Celia Blay in uncovering the truth, the ensuing investigation, and the legal battles that culminated in Melchert-Dinkel's conviction and its eventual reversal by the Minnesota Supreme Court.
Subscribe to our channel for more content, and don't forget to share it with your friends and family.
Nadia Kajouji was an 18-year-old student at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. She was known for her bright personality and academic excellence. However, her life took a dark turn when she became pregnant, suffered a miscarriage, and subsequently fell into a deep depression. Isolated from her friends and family after leaving home to begin studies at Carleton University in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, Kajouji sought solace on the internet, where she encountered William Melchert-Dinkel posing as a compassionate nurse under the alias Cammy D. She jumped from a bridge and was found drowned in the Rideau River in April 2008. Mark Drybrough, a 32-year-old IT technician from Coventry, England, also struggled with severe depression. Like Kajouji, he turned to online forums for support. It was here that he met Melchert-Dinkel, who, under the guise of a caring individual, provided him with detailed instructions on how to hang himself. William Melchert-Dinkel, a former licensed practical nurse, was obsessed with suicide and derived a perverse thrill from encouraging others to end their lives. He used various online aliases, including Cammy D and Lee Dow, to pose as a compassionate nurse and gain the trust of his victims. Melchert-Dinkel's actions were not driven by a desire to help, but by a morbid fascination with death and the power he could exert over vulnerable individuals. During his interactions with Kajouji and Drybrough, Melchert-Dinkel provided detailed instructions on how to commit suicide. He encouraged Drybrough to hang himself, which Drybrough ultimately did in 2005. In Kajouji's case, he suggested hanging, but she chose to jump into the frozen Rideau River in 2008, where her body was found 3 weeks later. He acknowledged participating in online chats about suicide with up to 20 people and entering into fake suicide pacts with about 10, 5 of whom he believed killed themselves. In November 2006, Celia Blay, a retired British schoolteacher living in Maiden Bradley, Wiltshire, received word from a teenaged friend in South America that she had entered a suicide pact with a young nurse. Blay investigated Melchert-Dinkel's Lee Dow identity and discovered that he had previously agreed to earlier suicide pacts. She successfully convinced the girl to break the pact for hours before the planned suicide. Throughout the following year, Blay posted warnings about Lee Dow on other chat websites. She also discovered Melchert-Dinkel's Falcon Girl and Cammy D identities and talked to users who entered other pacts in which he arranged to have attempted victims die in front of their webcams. After months of collecting evidence about Melchert-Dinkel's activities, Blay approached the local police. They opted not to investigate. In January 2008, around the time Melchert-Dinkel was corresponding with Kajouji Blay and a friend, Kotlo, set up a sting to catch Cammy D in the act of attempting a suicide pact. It was during this correspondence that Melchert-Dinkel described seeing a man from Birmingham, thought to be Drybrough, hang himself on his webcam. Lowe and Blay gained Melchert-Dinkel's trust and found information that traced him back to his IP address and residence in Minnesota. In a stroke of luck, they also saw Melchert-Dinkel through a webcam feed, posing as Cammy D. Blay submitted an affidavit on the matter to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, but received no response. However, the St. Paul Police Department and the Minnesota Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force agreed to take the case. William Melchert-Dinkel's police interview in January 2009 revealed a deeply unsettling and manipulative individual. During the questioning, he openly admitted to posing as various young women in their 20s within online suicide chat rooms. Authorities noted that he was highly skilled at feigning compassion for those in distress, often engaging in manipulative conversations where he offered both emotional support and detailed instructions on how to commit suicide. This dual persona raised significant alarms among investigators, who quickly realized that his internet activities were not benign interactions, but rather a calculated effort to exploit vulnerable individuals. In the interview, Melchert-Dinkel provided chilling details about his online interactions with victims such as Nadia Kajouji and Mark Drybrough. He claimed that his intentions were misunderstood, asserting that his guidance was meant to help these individuals find peace. However, transcripts from his chat sessions painted a starkly different picture, showcasing how he garnered trust and then led them toward fatal decisions. For instance, he advised Kajouji during their last chat about methods of hanging, cloaking his encouragement in phrases that seemed caring, but were tinged with a morbid fascination with death. This manipulation was a clear indication of his predatory nature and his obsession with suicide. As the investigation progressed, Melchert-Dinkel's claims of innocence began to unravel. His police interview illustrated a man deeply enmeshed in a suicide fetish, one who had built an online reputation over years as a predator lurking in the shadows of digital space. Law enforcement found evidence indicating that he had interacted with numerous individuals, highlighting the extensive nature of his manipulation. Melchert-Dinkel's lack of remorse during the interview further solidified investigators' concerns about his psychological state and the potential harm he posed to others in similar vulnerable situations. Melchert-Dinkel was convicted on March 15, 2011, in a criminal complaint filed in Rice County, Minnesota. He was charged with advising, encouraging, or assisting Kajouji and Drybrough in taking their own lives using internet correspondence. He was ordered to not use the internet while the case was underway. While encouraging suicide is illegal, laws in North America and Britain had not previously been successfully used to prosecute anyone for promoting suicide over the internet. He was found guilty of aiding a suicide under Minnesota law, which provides penalties for anyone who intentionally advises, encourages, or assists another in taking the other's own life. Punishment can be up to 15 years in prison and a fine of up to $30,000. He was sentenced on May 4, 2011, to 360 days in jail. On July 27, 2012, the Minnesota Court of Appeals affirmed the conviction. The Minnesota Supreme Court subsequently agreed to review the case. On March 19, 2014, the Supreme Court reversed the conviction and remanded the case back to Rice County District Court. The court held that merely advising or encouraging suicide was protected speech under the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. It went on to hold, however, that speech which actually assisted a suicide was not protected. Since the trial court made factual findings only with respect to encouraging and advising, the Supreme Court reversed the conviction. It remanded the case, however, for the lower court to determine whether Melchert-Dinkel had actually assisted the suicides within the meaning of the statute. In the case of Nadia Kajouji, Melchert-Dinkel was charged with attempting to assist a suicide because Kajouji ultimately died by jumping off a bridge into a frozen river, rather than by hanging, as Melchert-Dinkel had allegedly suggested to her online. Melchert-Dinkel was convicted of assisting the suicide of Mark Drybrough and attempting to assist the suicide of Nadia Kajouji. Rice County District Judge Thomas Newville sentenced William Melchert-Dinkel to 3 years in prison, but suspended that sentence if Melchert-Dinkel serves 360 days in jail and abides by the terms of his probation for 10 years after his release. During his second sentencing hearing, Melchert-Dinkel stated, "I am sorry. For my actions and what I have done, I have repented." Melchert-Dinkel was released in 2015 after serving 178 days in jail even after his release from prison in February 2015. His lawyer has continued to appeal the conviction. The tragic suicides of Nadia Kajouji and Mark Drybrough highlight the dangers of online predators who exploit vulnerable individuals. William Melchert-Dinkel's actions were driven by a morbid obsession with suicide and a desire to exert control over others. The tireless efforts of Celia Blay, a retired schoolteacher, were instrumental in bringing Melchert-Dinkel to justice. While the legal battles surrounding Melchert-Dinkel's conviction have raised important questions about the limits of free speech and the definition of assisting suicide, the cases of Kajouji and Drybrough serve as a stark reminder of the need for greater awareness and regulation of online activities that prey on vulnerable individuals. The legacy of these cases continues to shape discussions on suicide prevention and internet safety, ensuring that the tragic deaths of these two individuals are not in vain.